Welcome to Your Sexual Revolution, the podcast. I'm your host, Amaya Shiva, and I'm a sex and relationship coach who has supported hundreds of singles and couples from around the world to have healthy, happy, and hot relationships. Today's topic is a really important point for the evolution of our sexuality as a culture and as individuals. And I'm going to talk to you about performative versus pleasure-based sex and how the former has been fucking up your sex life and you didn't even know it. And I'm also going to talk about how to switch into a pleasure-based paradigm that leaves you feeling satisfied, connected, and wanting to do it again instead of avoiding sex or thinking that you're not good at it or whatever story you've been telling yourself. If you want to learn these secrets, stay tuned because I'm going to share with you what kills your sex life and what will truly amplify it. And the answer to the latter is actually really going to surprise you. So I was watching a movie the other night and there's this sex scene of a van bouncing around. You know, you hear a man and a woman groaning and then the van moves faster and you hear the man come. And then immediately after that, the van stops moving. 2 seconds later, he opens the door and comes out buckling his belt, right? Because of course, sex is over when the man ejaculates. Am I right? And of course, before going into the van, they only made out for 2 seconds before jumping in and taking their clothes off and then somehow magically having the hottest sex of their lives. Does this scene sound familiar? This is an example of performative-based sex, and that's what you've been being sold your whole fucking life and have experienced both personally and culturally through movies and media and what people said at your high school and your locker room. As a man, you may have experienced it as incredible pressure to ejaculate, to get and stay erect, to be able to have sex numerous times, to have a big dick and last a long time. This is all bullshit, but these are the kind of narratives that are running through people's minds and very possibly yours. As a woman, you may have found yourself feeling inadequate if your partner doesn't come. You're not hot enough and you're not good enough in bed to satisfy them. Or you feel anxious that you're taking way too long to orgasm, so you fake it. I've had numerous clients with both of those issues, and I was teaching a masterclass last night, and one of the women came on for the question part and said, you know, I have been feeling ashamed of myself because I've been having the best sex of my life with a guy who's not coming. And I asked her, well, if the man had ejaculated, would you have felt like the experience was complete, whether or not you did? She's like, yeah. I said, okay, well, how about we have that same standard for women, right? Why does it have to be the man's orgasm? That means you're done. I guarantee that almost every single woman listening right now has had sex where you were not wet and you were not fully turned on, but you bypassed that from the place of fear that you aren't enough unless you are immediately ready to fuck, like every show from Sex and the City to Emily in Paris, you name it, portrays. And quite frankly, these portrayals of sex are toxic and have led to a whole lot of people being really confused about why they aren't turned on during sexual encounters. And you might have thought something's wrong with you instead of the real reason, which is that for most people, turn on and sex don't work like what you have seen in the movies. So if you've been trying to do it that way, there is a pretty freaking good chance you're not having great sex. And in fact, I just read a survey that said only about 20% of sexually active people are experiencing a high level of sexual satisfaction. So if you want to be a part of that 20%, keep listening because I'm not only going to tell you the pitfalls of performative sex, I'm going to tell you how to switch to pleasure-based sex and what that actually looks like and some practices for you to do. Okay, so what is performative-based sex? Well, it's like there's a performance metric, right? If you have a goal from the experience, like I'm going to get laid tonight. Yeah, high five, bro, or high five, sis. And there's nothing wrong with having sex. It's a beautiful act when done with care and reverence. But if you're making sex and genital penetration the goal, and you feel like you aren't manly enough or hot enough without it, this is performative-based sex. If you think sex is over once somebody's ejaculated or squirted or whatever, this is performative-based sex. Another example that's sneaky as fuck, but definitely a part of this is you expect your body or that of your partners to look a certain way in order to be worthy of sex or desire. Let that land for a moment. And this really fucked me up for a long time. Like I used to think that I had to have a perfect body and be very thin in order to be desirable. I remember one morning waking up and my ex was like, "You were doing sit-ups in your sleep last night." And I was like, damn, that's kind of crazy. I was so neurotic about my body. It was showing up in my sleep as well. I felt a lot of pressure for my body to be a certain way for me to be worthy of touch, of sex and connection. That's pretty fucked up, but that's part of what we're sold in this culture. Another example of performative-based sex is you're so stuck in your head, right? You're not having fun. You're worried about how long you're taking to orgasm. Because again, right, that's the goal. This is performative-based sex. And I do hear that more often from women, although there are men out there who experience this too. And when this happens, you can't enjoy the moment because you're like, oh my God, what if they don't like me anymore because I take too long? I'm so high maintenance. I'm a lot of work. And there's a cultural story, especially for women, that we need to be easy in order to be lovable. Think about that. That's a mythology. It's also a mythology that you're supposed to be turned on and ready to go after 2 minutes of foreplay. If you look at any Taoist or Tantrika teachings, they all say you need a minimum of 30 minutes of warming the woman up, right? They call it warming the burners, I believe. And this is before you even start to consider penetration. This is in big contrast to what we've been shown. Another example is you fake your desire to have sex just to end the encounter or to be a people pleaser and make your partner happy instead of speaking your truth, which is that you don't feel like it right now at all. And this is saying, look how agreeable I am. I'm so fuckable and I'm really available. I guess I'm saying that from the perspective of a woman, but I'm sure men are feeling that too. And the last and most critical component of performative-based sex that needs to be rewritten is that you withhold when certain sexual activities don't feel good and you don't give feedback. So if you're hearing this list and you're saying to yourself, damn, I have done or do all of these things, don't beat yourself up, okay? I'd honestly be more surprised if you hadn't and didn't, because very few people in our culture are sex and pleasure informed or educated, right? Being here makes you part of a very elite group of people that is taking ownership of their pleasure back from this performative-based conditioning. I wasn't pleasure informed or educated either until I got serious about uncovering why I wasn't enjoying sex. Like, why had it been historically so mediocre and fucking boring, even though I'm a highly sexual person? And what I realized is that I wasn't doing it the right way. And I actually do believe there is a right way to have sex. And that's what I'm sharing with you today. I do not believe that performative sex is it. Not to mention that performative sex is way more likely to end up causing trauma for one or more of the partners involved because you're doing things you don't want to do. And when you bypass your body, it remembers and is like, nope, I don't want to do that again. And it can actually ruin future sexual encounters when you don't honor what your body is saying because you're too busy trying to follow some outdated performance metric, right? But you have permission to drop that. You might be asking yourself, what can you do instead so that you can start having the best sex of your life? Well, stay tuned for that because I'm going to cover that in just a few short minutes. But first, you got to know that sex in our culture is a sticky topic. There are a whole lot of beliefs floating around in the collective unconscious that contribute to performance-based sex. People think you need to have a certain outcome to feel like you did a good job. I was talking to this guy, the software engineer living in the Bay. We're talking about this topic, and he shared that every time he has sex with his girlfriend, he really, really cares that she orgasms. And when I asked him why, he said, well, because then I feel like I'm doing a good job, right? I did it right. I love orgasms too, but I mean, when you think about them in terms of the time you're experiencing the orgasm versus the other parts of sex, they're really a very small portion. And if you're focusing on just that, I mean, gosh, it's the journey, not the destination. Facts. So if you're doing that, you're missing out on a whole lot of other beautiful parts of your connection because you're in your head and you're treating sex and orgasm like something to be ticked off a list, and it could be ruining your sex life. It did mine. Performative sex is about it's about putting quantity over quality. You're measuring your attractiveness by how many partners you've had instead of the depth and beautiful experience you can have when you're really attuned and go deep with one person. It's putting your needs aside in order to please someone else because subconsciously, this is the way to keep love. And it's avoiding or giving feedback, right? Because you don't want to hurt someone else's feelings or come off as difficult or high maintenance. And most people don't mean any of this in a nefarious way, but they are very detrimental to what's possible for your happiness and sex life. What happens when you drop performance-based sex metrics and focus on pleasure-based sex? This is where the best sex and best sensual encounters of your life live. I guarantee it, because not only have I done that myself, I've actualized it, and I've helped numerous clients actualize it in their lives as well. So if you're ready to hear what these secrets are, keep listening. I have to laugh because as a teenager, I really thought that I was sexually liberated because me and my friends all had vibrators and we watched Sex and the City. But the truth is, being sexually liberated is far more than having some sex toys and watching a TV show. So this brings us into the most important topic, which is, what is pleasure-based sex? Pleasure-based sex is sex where you are focusing on attunement and connection as the priority, not penetration or number of orgasms. And what's so different about pleasure-based sex is that it's really a set of guiding principles. It's about how to be a conscious, connected human, a great lover by asking questions, by getting curious about what you want to experience and what you don't. And the same for your partner, instead of assuming that it needs to look like what you saw in the movies or what your friend describes or any of that. One of the best parts of pleasure-based sex practices is that it's not about genital penetration. And I'm telling you, the irony of this is that like once you stop focusing on genital penetration, you can actually start having way better sex when you do get there. And that is so different than focusing on how many times you've had an orgasm or how many partners you've had or how big your dick is, right? So the number one principle of pleasure-based sex is connection and attunement. These are your priority, not penetration or number of orgasms. And what this looks like on the ground is noticing what you're feeling, getting in touch with your actual desires for this moment, and being able to notice something similar in your partner, or being willing to ask if you don't know the answer. This is so important because this is how we prevent traumatic experiences happening during sex as much as possible, right? When you're asking someone, when you're really paying attention to how you feel and to how they feel and adjusting the experience accordingly and knowing that you can stop it at any point in time, it's going to transform the experience, right? You're going to feel so safe. And when you feel safe with someone, then you can really get turned on. Some people think that the turn on is all about the novelty and the excitement and the new person. But if you're there, it's only because you haven't really experienced that depth and safety and how much that can really open you up and make you flower. So principle number 2, perfect segue from that, is that collaboration and communication are foundational to any experience. And encounters should begin with checking in to see what each person desires, what their boundaries are, where there's confluence for both people. And this is going to make your encounters connected, and you're going to feel safe, and you're going to only be doing what you want. It's really important to make sure you're not expecting there to be sexual intercourse every time you do have sensual touch or intimacy. And I say that from my own personal experience and as a professional, because I can tell you, when I was in long-term partnership, there were points where I would just avoid any kind of touch because I felt like if I initiated something, made out or snuggled or was sensual, then we had to have sex, and I didn't always want to. And so I just avoided it, even though there were a lot of times where I would have loved to be cuddly or get intimate in other ways. But when there's this pressure of sex behind every fucking experience, for me, it was a big turnoff. And so many of my clients have had the same experiences. When you take that off the plate because you've communicated and you've collaborated about what you want in this encounter, well, my gosh, it just completely transforms the whole experience. It's very freeing. It just takes that pressure off. So this is an incredibly powerful tool and principle for bringing spice and intimacy into your sex life. Again, reminding you that orgasm and genital touch are not the main focus or even required. And there's no expectation for either person to achieve any certain outcome. This includes, you don't have to get an erection. You don't have to get vaginal wetness. You don't have to have hard nipples. None of that. Like, that all just goes out, and you're just present with what is and what you're experiencing in this moment. Like, how beautiful is that? Another principle of pleasure-based sex, I like saying that, pleasure-based sex, is there's an emphasis on physical sensation and connection. And this is so important because this goes back to that principle of attunement to your own body, checking in with, like, what are your desires in this moment? What would be a fun and juicy experience right now. With that comes an opportunity to start noticing these things that are often missed, or these places on your body that don't often get sexual or sensual attention, but that can be highly erotic with the right intention. This is a great way to get out of the box or any pattern you might have been in. Like, okay, now we're going to make out. Now you're going to go down on me. Now we're going to have sex. Now you've orgasmed. End. Like when you get into these patterns in your sex life, it can be fucking boring. Another really important principle is that you have permission to stop an encounter at any point in time. There is never an obligation to continue something, and you are welcomed and encouraged to say no if it's not feeling good. And you can either stop and make adjustments if that's what's needed, or you can just stop and say, hey, you know what? That sounded like a good idea. I thought I had the energy, but now I'm noticing I don't. So thank you so much for hearing me. You don't have to go into explanation. You don't have to say, I just had a really long day. You don't have to justify it. You can just say, I'm not into this right now. And that's enough. That's enough. And that's one of the most powerful principles I've learned within my own communities here in Austin. And I'm so grateful for that. It's really important that you're able to say no and receive no without feeling guilty or creating shame, or without making a story about you. And it's really, really important, because just because somebody else doesn't feel like having sex in the moment, it doesn't mean that something's wrong with you, okay? It's their personal choice and experience. Like, they really could just be too tired. Or maybe there's an opportunity for you to look into the different erotic blueprints and how you can tap into some of those different ways of connecting, right? If you just notice, hey, this way of connecting that we've been in isn't really working for me. So let's get curious about other things we can try. It's totally okay if there are moments where your feelings get hurt in this process, and you notice like, wow, I'm feeling a little sense of rejection, and I'm worried that I'm not doing it right and that you won't like me anymore. And just feel okay to share, because it is okay to share those thoughts and emotions and experiences, right? All of that being said, I want you to imagine for a moment what your sex life would feel like from following these principles. Like, wow, you're so clear on what you want, knowing that there's no pressure to do anything. There's ample opportunity for creativity and experimentation. Like, that all sounds pretty fucking dope. Am I right? And even better, I don't want you to imagine it. I want you to start doing it. And I know it can seem like a big leap and even a little bit scary, but I promise you that the changes you experience in your level of pleasure, safety, and connection are well worth any risk of being new at something. This is something I always tell my clients, like when they're saying to me, oh, Amaya, I'm so bad at this. I feel so awkward. I say, well, let's change that language. Like, you're not bad at this. You're new at this. Do you yell at a baby when it's learning to walk because it falls down? Of course not. You're not like, stupid baby, you should be running a 7-minute mile. No, you help the baby get back up, or you just let it be where it is. Let it be where it is. Same with you. Same with my clients. You're learning this and I'm helping you, and it's cool. So don't worry too much about fucking it up. I'd be way more worried about staying stuck in mediocre sex and shitty connections that leave you feeling drained and lonely. You can feel lonely during sex if you're following a performance-based metric, and that's terrible. It's just awful. Some of you listening right now are asking the question, well, what am I supposed to do if there's no genital touch and there's no penetration and there's no orgasm? Like, what? And if this is you, I totally get it, because that's what we've been shown and modeled. And this is a big invitation to look at why you are so focused and reliant on those activities. And if in fact there's a part of you that is feeling insecure or uncertain because you might not feel very sexually resourced in terms of creativity and having a robust sexual vocabulary and ideas for stuff you can try. The good news is that there are so many ways to amplify pleasure and connection. I'm actually going to share some with you because I want you to walk away with some ideas. I'm going to share just a few, and if you do want to check out more, you can go to my website, amayashiva.com. All of this is actually in a blog already on my website. So you can take a look at the principles of performative-based sex versus pleasure-based sex in a typed format and then have it handy. I know for myself, it can be hard to remember everything I hear in a podcast, but having a list is pretty useful. That's available to you. So something that I love to do as an energetic blueprint, like for me, sexual penetration, I don't need it. It's not the most important part of my experience for sure. And I can experience a lot of pleasure, a lot of other ways that are far more subtle. And one thing that I really enjoy is playing like a tease game where you don't actually touch or kiss the person, but you get so close. You can feel the wind of their breath caressing your skin. You know, you're blowing on their neck, their nipples. It can be even at the mouth, but you're not actually touching. Exploring like how much energy you can build in the realm of anticipation. Like it's really, really hot. Another really cool idea is just sit there and narrate what you like about this person in front of you. Like, I love the way you laugh, right? But do it with some sensual energy. I love the way you laugh. I love the way you look at me. I love the softness or the roughness of your skin. I love the way you help people. I love your intelligence. This is how I work. So just to give you some ideas, but experiment, try your own thing. These are really fun things to share about someone to make them feel good. And notice that I didn't even say anything about the body, really, right? I mean, of course, you can talk about the body, but there's more to it. Like, who is this entire being in front of you? And it's so powerful to be seen by somebody in your entirety, right? Especially when having an erotic encounter, a pleasure-based experience, because that's what we're craving. We're craving to be seen in our fullness, and this is what allows it. So do that, try that, play with it. You can also just lay in front of a fire, lay on something soft and delicious like velvet or a fur or whatever. It's January right now here in Austin and everywhere in the world, so it's kind of cold, and you can just make yourselves a warm little cozy spot and take turns massaging each other, have good smells in the room, beautiful music, and have a limit. Say tonight, I just want to play with no touch from the waist down, no touch of my genitals. You could touch my butt. You can touch my chest, my breasts, stuff like this, right? And making these kinds of encounters a scheduled part of your connection practice is so beautiful. If you're relying on penetration, it just might be that you don't have a robust sexual vocabulary and you get to learn one. And the cool thing about all of this is that these are learnable skills. Like, don't feel like, how am I supposed to know? Like, nobody just knows this. And you are here learning. That's what you're doing here today, right? So there you have it. I'm so excited. I hope you got a lot out of this podcast. And if you did, please like it. Please leave me a 5-star review. Help me get some more visibility and share with your friends. Thanks so much for joining, and welcome to your new paradigm of pleasure-based experiences during sex. If you are ready for a guide on this journey, there is also a link for an application for a free consult with me on my website, and I will drop the link below. If this is YouTube, I would book now because they do fill up quickly. If you are a conscious professional who likes getting results and wants to shortcut the time you spend trying to figure out how to connect deeply with your partner or how to find a great new partner and do it in a healthy, conscious way, you know what to do. Sending so much love and light, and I'll see you all very soon.